This episode is brought to you by Amazon Video Games. Visit bit.ly/Amazon Backlog Battle, all one word, when you buy anything from Amazon so we can continue offering our back catalog of shows.
This is the Backlog Battle Podcast, episode 178.
I am a shark.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Backlog Battle Podcast. This is Alex.
And this is Anthony.
What's going on, good sir?
It's going. Regular episode, hooray.
Yeah, I know. So, you guys probably listened to the previous episode, which was very Final Fantasy XIV focused, mostly. But, sad to say, I'm going to say this right now, Anthony. It's not going to be the end of the conversation. Although, more importantly, I guess I'll just go right out and say it.
Just say it.
I'm going to be reviewing Final Fantasy XIV Stormblood because I just finished that game, about a couple of days ago. Man, I got a lot to say. A lot of good stuff to say.
Okay. So you did. I got a review too.
Really?
Yeah. Walking Dead.
Okay, so...
Because I finished it. I finished Walking Dead.
Okay, so, it shouldn't be as long as when we last talked about it, which was about, 2 weeks ago, right?
Right.
Okay, so why don't we just start with that? So what changed between back then and now?
Well, of course I beat the whole... A lot. Okay, so let's retread some familiar territory real quick. This is important.
Sure.
Alex and I loved Season 1, like everyone did.
Mm-hmm.
But Alex never finished Season 2. I did, and I still didn't really care for Season 2.
Yeah.
The problem...
sorry, before you interject,
yeah.
About 2 weeks ago I said, I wasn't sure if I actually played Season 2. I do remember playing Season 2, and that's why we had that conversation.
Yeah. So Season 2, the problem with it was there was no structure to it, and they just had stuff happen to shock you. The characters weren't really likable, except for maybe the returning ones from Season 1. And it just was not it didn't have the heart that Season 1 did. You know what I mean?
The writer certainly didn't know how to tell a tale and build characters to create empathy.
Exactly. Now, Season 3 is a whole different story. Now, I did up my score, but not to a 5, and I'll explain why. But I will say this. Season 3 is it's story-wise, it's really good.
That's good.
Really, really good. Really, really good. And unlike the last one, which was just a clusterfuck, this one has one story arc, and it's really focused in each episode. Now, it's funny. One of the complaints I've heard about this one, and I don't think this is a complaint, I think it's actually a benefit, was the length of episodes. It was these episodes were shorter than episode 1 and Season 1, Season 2. Okay? Mm-hmm. And that was a complaint by reviewers. I don't feel it was. I feel it was a benefit, and that might have been part of the problem with Season 2. Some of the episodes are oh my God, this guy fell through ice by zombies just to fall through ice. Really? Did we have to see that? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But in this one, I think because of the shortness of each episode, I felt the pacing was really good. It was fast. It didn't feel rushed.
Okay.
Fast, but not rushed. There's a difference. People forget that. So that was a benefit in it. And there was still enough time to develop the new main character, Javier, who I really like.
Yeah.
I think he's a really, really good main character. And again, really well paced. And I think the shorter episodes benefited it than being longer, because if they were be longer, especially with the story they told, they would have to pad it out with unnecessary filler shit. And I didn't feel the game had any filler stuff. Maybe a couple of throw in quick zombie fights just to, add a little action, but nothing that felt like boring ass, oh, are we really going to do this again? Filler like season 2 had.
Okay. All right.
So the pacing is excellent. The character development is excellent. Another complaint, which again, I don't think is a weakness, it benefits it, is Clementine is again a supporting character as opposed to being the main character in season 2. And some people didn't like that, but I did.
Mm-hmm.
And it benefited her story a lot too.
Yeah, I think there are legitimate stories that you can tell by being a third person, observer, right? Like, I mean, in a way, Metal Gear Solid 2, which is a really popular example of this, kind of faltered a little bit because they tried to do it so hard. Like, like they kind of forced it upon like people, without any sort of meaningful transition and kind of like explanation, if you will, I guess that's a better term for it. But I feel like in The Walking Dead, there's so many different characters, like it's kind of I mean, I guess because of the way season 2 happened, I guess you could argue that this is Clementine's story, but at the same time, it's like, like you said, Javier, pretty much like seems to me like he stole the show for you, Yeah,
he did. He did. And he is the main character, because what the game does is at the beginning of each episode, this is something really cool they did. There was a prologue, and the prologue either took place before the apocalypse or shortly thereafter. So each episode starts with it, and they develop that character, and they just become more meaningful and meaningful and meaningful. And they're not filler. They all like play into what happens into that episode.
Okay.
So you get this character development, and here's the things that worked well for this story. One, there's a love triangle in it that worked really well, and that wasn't soap opera-y or anything. And of course, you don't have to participate in it if you don't want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's that. There's also the storyline between Javier and his brother. That's all I'm going to say on that, because there's a little bit of a twist in that for those that didn't play. Of course, Clementine's story still carries on some of the story arc of her being a parental figure at her age.
Okay.
And that works out. So those are the two main storylines, and it's really a good story. I really liked it.
Okay.
So story-wise, it's good. So why I don't give it a 5 though.
Okay.
Same reason why I, was reluctant to give it a 4. Engine. That engine is almost borderline goofy to me. And there were a lot of bad glitches, like people who were walking. There was one scene with Javier that I had, and there were lines like a puppet pulling him against the wall.
Wow.
Stuff like shit like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of glitchiness. And I've been saving this for this show to tell you. Here's my favorite glitch, and I'm gonna do. It's not a spoiler, but I have to describe it this way. And for those that play Walking Dead games, there's really, this happens in all of them. There's a choice you have to make between two characters, right? Of course, one lives, one dies. We've seen that plenty of games.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I chose one character, and the character died. Okay, so the next episode after that one, where that character died, there was a scene of the camera panning of the group walking together, and the character that had died was walking with the group in that one scene.
Whoa.
Yeah. Just that one scene. I was like, is he really there? Because he died. He's well dead.
Man, I would have wanted to see that. Your PlayStation can record video, right?
Well, I didn't catch it in the moment. I was just playing it. I didn't expect that to happen. But maybe I can get it to happen again.
Well, you do know that the PlayStation records like all the time, though, right?
Mm-mm.
Oh my God. How much do you know about the PlayStation 4? Can we actually go back in 2013 and tell you the features? Jesus Christ.
No. I didn't realize it recorded all the time.
It recorded all the time. It records the last 30 minutes of your gameplay. Oh my god.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't have that anymore.
Okay. So
But it was funny.
Everybody remind Anthony that we're living in 2017 right now, and games actually get recorded on your hard drive.
I really don't care about that. That's why.
I do.
Well,
So instead of you
but...
describing this to me, I could have probably retweeted it and be like, "Hey, look at this fuckery," and then we'll mention
dude,
Telltale
I was in
games
the moment.
about it.
I wasn't thinking, oh, there's a really neat glitch. I was like in shock, like, what the fuck is he doing here?
But even
Or
then,
she.
like within like 30 minutes, I mean, I'm pretty sure you would have settled by then and be like, all right, here we go. Let's save it.
Well, I didn't realize it, asshole. So there you go.
Okay.
Well, can we get on with the review? Let's get on with the review. Okay. So Alex can, wave his dick around saying he knows more about the PlayStation.
Hey, a lot more people, including our listeners, know more about you than on the PlayStation 4.
I just know that. Well, didn't know that one feature. I've used it for 3 fucking years.
That was one of their marketing fucking gimmicks.
I didn't care about that. I don't care
Jesus.
about that. I don't care. I know how to use a PlayStation 4 pretty adeptly, other than that one fucking feature. Shit. Anyhow.
You also know that it takes screenshots too, right?
Yeah, that I did know.
And GIFs as well.
Yes, I know that, asswipe. Okay. And I know how to broadcast it manually. Because I've streamed on it.
At least you know that part.
Fuck you, Abzu, motherfucking. You and your goddamn bad puns. Oh,
that was not a bad pun. It's just you not knowing PlayStation 4 features.
But I make funny jokes, not unfunny jokes. So. Anyway, can we do this review?
The funny thing is he keeps saying that because it's not funny anymore. Because he keeps saying that.
Oh, well. Nice one, Alex. Nice one. Nice. How can I say? Block of verbal judo.
Totally nice
judo. Yeah, nice verbal war block. But anyway, other than that, though, and I think aside from our bickering here, we can agree that Telltale engine needs work.
This has already been stressed in the previous review.
It does. Well, it needs to be more stressed now because I noticed even more problems with it playing the whole thing. And I'm sorry, but it would have been a 5 without this engine.
So, but it's still a 4, though?
It's a 4 because of the engine. The story, here's the thing.
It was a 3 before, right? Yeah.
It was a 3, yeah. Because I still had reservations. I liked episode 1 a lot at the time I reviewed it, right?
Okay.
But knowing me, I didn't know if I would go back to it or if I would, dislike the other episodes. And it would be like, you would hope that the episodes would be of the same quality. And it turns out that was the case. In terms of storytelling, not the stupid glitches.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So in terms of that, it works really well. Now, I have looked, and again, I'm going to put my Marvel bias aside, but I have looked at Guardians of the Galaxy, and this has nothing to do with it being a Marvel property, but it also looks a little weakened by the, Telltale engine. And I think that's the case even with the Batman game. Like the Batman game, it's Batman, but you look at all the characters from all of these games, and they all have the samey look. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, the Telltale look,
Yeah, the Telltale look. And, it's just like you guys just need to change the engine. And I know what you told me last time. You told me, they make it for iPhones and shit, but I don't know. I feel that's their biggest problem now, and they need to do something a little bit different, Yeah. That's just they do. They really need to. You know what? The other reason I gave it a 4 was in terms of gameplay, it does nothing different than anything. I mean, yeah, people can make the argument. Yes, it's like playing a Dynasty Warrior game, Anthony, or Magus, however you want to call me. You know what you're getting. And yes, I knew what I was getting in terms of gameplay, but it's not too much for me to ask, do something a little different, Make it a little bit different.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to push the adventure game moving forward, I feel. And, Don't Nod has obviously gotten a lot of acclaim for Life is Strange last year. And of course, I have that in my list of games, that I really, really liked during that year. So it's like, to me, we're going to see a lot more innovation in this field if we look away from Telltale. And it'll need to take like a huge adventure game, or at least like one that's basically like, reached critical acclaim and sales acclaim for Telltale to be like, all right, well, we can't slack off on this, so. Yeah. Until then, I don't think that's ever going to happen. Sad to say.
It's because like you said, there's other people. It's one of those things where, and we've seen this in gaming a lot, where somebody does something amazing and they set a standard for it, but then other companies blow away that standard that was set, and that company just kind of stays in the comfort zone. Does that make sense?
Right.
Look at BioWare compared to CD Projekt Red, right? That's a good example of
right.
That, and to be fair, BioWare did try to innovate, but it's just it's I don't know. But 4 out of 5 for me. Really strong 4 out of 5. Just because the story because just the story is really good though. And it's really well paced. And I think if they do more shortened episodes, that's one step in the right direction. I think shortened episodes like that are a good idea. I think that's what really, really helped with this game. And I'm surprised people complained about that, but I don't see it as a complaint.
Okay. Yeah.
Shorter could be better if you can get the pacing right, and they got the pacing right.
Okay, that's good. That's really good.
And it's a very concise game, and it has a set story arc, and it doesn't change story arcs like 4 or 5 times. And to be fair, as much as we like season one was a little bit all over the place now that I think about it. Yeah, let's not kid ourselves. The main thing that kept us going was Clementine and Lee. That's why a lot of people. But if you look at the actual plot structure itself, it was a little all over the place. I think of all 3 Walking Dead games, this is the most concise.
Interesting. I think, it's probably also because, maybe there's a new team behind it and stuff. I mean, we could pause it left and right, center, back, forward, whatever. But I'm glad that, Walking Dead Season 3 seemed to be a really good, entry into the series. Because, like what we mentioned many times before, after Season 2, it just felt like it was going to go downhill and never recover, it seemed like,
That's why I didn't buy Season 3.
Yeah.
That's exactly why, because it just was not. Season 2 was the problem with Season 2 was Season 1 had a heart, right? Clementine and Lee. And in this one, you have a new character that, he's not Lee, and he's not a mentor for Clementine, but he adds a new dimension and has a different relationship with her, right?
Right.
And there's even a love story and all this. This one had a lot of heart. In that second episode, I don't understand why every character was a paranoid motherfucker. I get it, they're in the zombie apocalypse, but if you've actually read the comics, which I have, not everyone's a paranoid motherfucker. They are paranoid to a degree, but these people were all douchebags. They were all if I remember in Season 2, they were all cheating on each other, and there's just a lot of unnecessary melodrama. And I like melodrama, but I mean, it was all unnecessary, and it just, I don't know, it was dumb. It was really, really, really dumb. But it
was obviously a game that was made in reaction to the success of the first game. It was just like, hey, we got to release a second one of these because it got really popular, and that's, to me, it's easy to kind of see it that way, especially with how soon Season 2 came out.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Yeah, it was Season 2 seemed rushed, and this one, Season 2 ended in, I think, 2014. So it's been a good couple years, and they really did a good job with this one. That's good. And again, I will say it's probably the most concise story that they've told in this series, which is really good. Because I thought it was just going to be like them moving from locale to locale and then them running into some different group of people that's weird. But no, it was the same enemy throughout.
I see.
It was the same enemy throughout. It was the same area just about, it was all confined into one area, it seemed like.
So is it possible to kind of start in Season 3 if you've never played the previous 2?
Yes, because one thing it does is if you've never played the other 2 episodes, one thing it does is it has remember that comic book that you talked about, that virtual interactive comic book for Mass Effect 2 for the PS1? It does that.
Including the choices and stuff?
Yeah, with the major choices.
Oh.
Can I just spoil the ending to Season 1?
We're far along in the cycle. Yeah.
Did you shoot Lee or did you let him turn? Stuff like that.
Oh, I shot him.
Yeah, but that's what it asks you though. in that interactive thing.
Okay.
You know, and I know, I'll be honest, I know that you won't buy this at full price or anything, or even buy it, but if you can find it for like $3.99 on sale in the winter, I think you would love the story to this. I think this story's right up your alley.
Okay, sounds good.
I think just and don't go in thinking, oh, it's going to be an amazing game experience. Just go in it knowing that you're probably going to enjoy a really good, concise, well-paced story. Go in with that mindset.
Okay. Yeah, I think I will.
Because I went in with a very skeptical mindset, and man, was I surprised. And I shouldn't be, because I want to get back to Batman soon, and I really liked what I played of Batman. So
okay.
So there you go on that. So
there you go. So 4 out of 5 for that game. Woo!
4. Yay! All right. So you have a review.
So I do have a review of Stormblood, and this is, almost super comprehensive. Now, by the time you guys are listening to this, the new raid has probably come out, as well as the Savage version of that raid. We're not going to cover that. We're just going to basically cover the basic experience of playing the expansion, playing the patches that are associated with the expansion, which is only just one, because obviously Stormblood just came out. And surprise, surprise, and this is going to probably surprise you too, PvP. Yeah, because that's a word thrown around a lot, and people don't like it, because the idea of fighting other people seems very, bad, that sort of situation. But
especially, let me interrupt you real quick, especially the way a lot of older multiplayer games did it.
Sure.
Like when you think of PvP, I think of my bad experiences in Diablo 2 getting tricked and my stuff stolen.
Right.
Yeah, but they don't do it quite like that anymore.
No, they don't. And, I'll explain, how PvP actually works in Final Fantasy XIV once I get to that part of it, okay? So,
sound good?
Yeah, so Stormblood, and interestingly enough, I can spoil the actual, story of the game initially, like the setup for it, right? Because Heavensward is so, even though it is like a Final Fantasy XIV expansion, it is very much separate from the events that are going on in Stormblood. So the bottom line is that when you played A Realm Reborn, which is the original game, the bad guys were the Garleans. And the Garleans are basically every single evil organization that Final Fantasy has ever had in its entire series.
Even Shinra?
Even Shinra, yes, actually. And what's, and about this. You've fought the Garleans in A Realm Reborn. You fought Gaius Van Balzar. How evil they are, right? So Stormblood actually takes, the story back to, to the main villains of the title. Specifically, it's Xenos Vas Galvus, who is basically like the new big bad of the series. He's the son of the current chancellor of the Garlean Empire. And he basically kind of is holding territory of 2 different areas. One is Alamigo, which is this area adjacent to one of the starting cities in, Final Fantasy XIV. And, and basically they've occupied that for about 25 years or so, right? And in the east, they also occupy a nation called Doma. And if you're a Final Fantasy fan, Doma is what, Anthony?
It is a kingdom in Final Fantasy VI that is wiped by the Empire, the Gestalian Empire in that game.
Very good. So,
why would I would know.
No, I'm just, I wanted you to be part of the conversation, right?
I'm being facetious.
Okay, fine. So basically what's interesting about this is that, Alamigo is very, desert-like and stuff, and, but you kind of see, the Garlean technology jutting out in the distance because of the way that it is. Whereas Doma is this beautiful Asian, and I'm not going to say Japanese or Chinese because it's inspired by all of the Asian countries in, the East and stuff. It's almost like a mini, it's almost like a mini Asia, if you will, but, done in so well of a fashion, right? And what's really fascinating about it is that, you go back and forth between these two, and you're kind of helping 2 different kind of groups of people try to overthrow the local government, which is controlled by the Garleans. So if you want to think of it this way, it's almost like a war/invasion kind of storyline, where the west side is going to try to take over, and the east side is trying to take over in order to kind of confuse the Garlean Empire. because, you know, they're kind of sitting like up north, and, you know, maybe if you both forces try to attack at the same time, take over like the local governments, maybe they'll have a chance to actually overthrow the local government, right?
Right.
So this happens in a very kind of like, so to give people an idea of how long we played, I basically, you know, me and my girlfriend finished it in about a week, in about 2-3 days, you know?
Okay.
So we're talking like possibly like upwards of about 40 to 50 hours.
I'm looking up another 2 years, so there you go.
For you, yes. But what's really fascinating though is like going into Stormblood, we were clued in that the, you know, the casual raids were going to be based off of Final Fantasy XII, specifically Ivalice, you know, because you're going to go back to Ivalice for the expansion. For those casual raids, I'm sorry. And there are bosses coming from Final Fantasy V, you know, and of course the mention of Doma. There's a hint that 6 is somewhere in there. So it's almost like this hodgepodge of different Final Fantasies, because as you guys already know by listening to our podcast, Final Fantasy XIV is a hodgepodge of different Final Fantasies, right?
Right.
Now, the funny thing is that you'll never know what hodgepodge of Final Fantasy they're taking from. Because I'll tell you this, I've seen like story plots taken from 4, taken from 1, taken from 3, and all over the place in this one. And it's like, you know, when I see some event happen, even though of course it's happening in Final Fantasy XIV, I immediately think like, I remember that. Somebody else did it in this other game, they did it that way. Or this dungeon looks very similar to this thing that happened in another Final Fantasy that you will never forget, but you swear you've seen it before, you know? And the thing is that's really cool is like, and I'll spoil the first dungeon for you, because I think this is actually a really super cool throwback in Final Fantasy.
Okay.
And it's not really a bad spoiler. I don't
Well,
think.
you're just gonna tell me what it is. You're not gonna tell me the context in which it's being used.
Of course. So
right.
You know how in Final Fantasy games where you're on a sailing ship, you'll always get attacked?
Yeah.
They made a dungeon based off of that idea.
Oh,
yeah.
I like that. That's cool. That is really well. Or you know what? It's not just sailing ships, that or airships. Because you know what I got thinking about? Mm-hmm. The beginning of Final Fantasy IV.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, they in Heavensward, I forgot. I think his name is Doomgaze. If you remember in Final Fantasy VI, like he's the guy that attacks you like while you're on the airship and stuff. Like,
yeah, let me explain all that. In Final Fantasy VI, in the World of Ruin, one thing that people forget that happens is, other than the land being apocalyptic, it awoken these sleeping like godlike demons. And Doomgaze or Deathgaze, there's different.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, no, it's all Doomgaze is also valid. Remember, there's 2 different translations of that game.
Right.
Official. There's a ton of unofficial ones. But Doomgaze or Deathgaze, however, which ones you want to go with, they were these demons that woke up and they're like 9 dragons. But Deathgaze or Doomgaze is the most, I guess, the one that hounds you the most.
Right.
Because in that game, when you're in the airship, you don't get attacked randomly, except by Doomgaze. And then when you finally kill him, he stops attacking you.
Right.
And I know I'm going on too much, but it could also be a little similar to the way they also did Ultima Weapon in FF7. So, but except Ultima attack, you just ram your ship into him, and then you would have a battle, and then chase him again, and then whatever.
Right. And the thing is, to be clear, it is Doom/Deathgaze that you do fight in the beginning of the last leg of the casual raid in Heavensward. You do fight him on an airship as well. So
I like that.
So, that's actually, it's funny. You start the raid and it's a boss battle with him. That's how it starts. No, like, small ass enemies kind of warming you up. No, it's Doomgaze right away. Which, a lot of people immediately said like, oh my God, it's Doomgaze. But anyways, that's beside the point. So, so yeah, they made like a sailing ship version of that in a way, but it's a full dungeon. So it's kind of exciting. And, one of the biggest critiques that they got from a lot of fans is to try to make the dungeons feel more exciting, right? And, having done all the dungeons in Heavensward and Stormblood and A Realm Reborn, Stormblood's dungeons do feel very exciting. They have really cool mechanics that they're going to be using in raids. Let's put it that way. They've got new AoE patterns, because I'm pretty sure you love those, Anthony.
I don't dislike them.
They make them tough. They make them
tough.
Tough.
I like them. I like them because the game feels more intense.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. In a lot of MMOs, and if you play World of Warcraft, that's cool. But this is just my opinion. A lot of combat in a lot of those games. I'm talking about older World of Warcraft, maybe going back to vanilla.
Right.
If you look at a lot of battles from that game, or even EverQuest, for fuck's sakes, how archaic that game is. That game's so archaic.
Yeah.
And it's still going. There wasn't things like AoEs or things. Battles were so slow. It's
right.
Like, fuck me.
Yeah.
Wake me up.
Right. And, you know, and what's really cool about, you know, the 14 is that, you know, like Stormblood specifically is, you know, like not to, you know, to kind of distance myself from an opinion that I made of Heavensward 2 years ago on this podcast, but it's because I was actually asking myself this question, Anthony, like, did I actually genuinely like Heavensward? You know, because I didn't get the time to actually listen to that episode when we talked about it a little bit, but like
you did, and I'm going to tell us a behind the scenes story.
Okay.
When we were doing the 2015 Game of the Years, you and I had a very, very long discussion about, do we include expansion packs to our Game of the Year?
Right.
And you fought for it. And at first, I didn't really think that was a good idea, because expansion packs but they aren't what they used to be, you know, with the advent of DLC and stuff. But in some cases, like with the Final Fantasy stuff, these are true expansion packs in the traditional sense.
Right.
So we came up with that measure, and you fought hard because you did like Heavensward.
Okay.
And then we actually have, just for those that don't know, we do allow expansion packs to be traditional ones to be included in our Game of the Years. And part of the reason is, for the second year, Alex, in fact, your number one was an expansion pack.
Right. Yeah.
So just wanted to elaborate on that. So.
It is interesting that, you know, like, you know, for 2 consecutive years, it was kind of like, all right, well, expansion pack for like the thing. Well, I mean, okay, well, actually, now that I think about it, probably not so, because I think I did do The Witcher 3 for like 2015.
Yes, right? It was both of our, Witcher 3 was our Game of the Year.
Yeah. And in 2016, it was just, you know, Blood and Wine. So, so going back to this, I feel like, you know, if we were going to have that conversation again this year, I think Stormblood actually even makes the case for it a lot more. Because not only did they actually listen to a lot of the criticisms that fans had, they've completely and entirely revamped the entire battle system. In fact,
really? Okay.
Oh yeah. In fact, if you log into Final Fantasy XIV right now, you will see like most of your abilities have slashes on them, which means they're completely and utterly gone and taken out of the game.
How do I use them for the other game, for Heavensward?
You could still use some of the abilities that exist, but most of the abilities are gone now. So you're probably like thinking like, oh shit, I gotta redo everything, right? Well, what they kind of did was they kind of removed like the extraneous stuff, the ones that you shouldn't even be used or nobody uses anyway, right? So here's a good example. Did you really try to use the damage over time ability of the Dragoon when you attack something, or you just, you know, do your full thrust combo every single time?
No, I would do the damage over time.
Yeah, because the damage over time is gone.
What? No.
Yeah.
That combo? I used that combo a lot.
The damage over time is one attack. It wasn't even a combo.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that thing is gone.
Why?
Because here's the thing that I felt like was really cool about them. They said that, you know, not everybody is playing on a mouse and keyboard, right? Most people play on a controller. Also, they don't want ability bloat. What does that mean? That means every single time an expansion comes out, they always add new abilities and stuff, to the point where in World of Warcraft, you have about 80 or something abilities and traits, and you don't use any of them all the time. You know? Right. So it becomes ridiculous, because now you're thinking we're talking about your rotation and your combo, and that's just 3 buttons, right? Well, what if the combo becomes like 8 steps or 10 steps? It becomes unwieldy. Right, it becomes really unmanageable, and the Final Fantasy 14 developers didn't want that. So instead, what they looked at was all the abilities that really didn't belong in specific characters. Like, so for example, like I think the damage over time is called phlebotomize. I think it was called.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
So that's completely gone because they were like, well, damage over time, I mean, how's that going to help, right? The tanks also have lost their damage over time. So it's like, it's kind of interesting where they kind of cut back and where they kind of like added. Now, that's not to say that you're not powerful still, but what they've done is they've tuned the attribute system so that way you're dealing more damage as opposed to before. You know,
right.
So while the damage over time isn't there anymore, the damage you would naturally like deal is now in your actual hits and combos and stuff. So, but that's just one change. Another change is, you know, what we talked about before is you don't have to level a second job in order to unlock or second class in order to unlock your job. So, for example, if you're a Lancer and you want to be a Dragoon, normally you'd have to level the Lancer to level 30 and then the Marauder to level 15. But in this case, that requirement has been completely thrown out the window. You don't even have to do that anymore. Yeah. So you could just play one class and go all the way to the job, and it's going to be unlocked. You just do the job quest. That's it. You know? Another thing. So remember how sometimes you needed to level other jobs or classes in order to get their abilities to be able to use?
Right.
Remember that? That's not there anymore either. They've completely removed that. It's called what used to be the cross-class action, and this is talking about like, to describe to people. If you're help me out here, Anthony, weren't there Final Fantasies where if you level 2 different jobs, you can get one job's ability and equip it to your current job?
Yes, I believe 3 did that. Okay. And I'm not talking about Final Fantasy VI, folks. I'm talking about the original 3.
Right.
3 did that.
Didn't
Tactics do that?
Did Bravely Default do that?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
You could actually carry up to like 2 or 3, maybe.
Right.
If I remember.
So if you guys listening can imagine, it's the same idea, but it didn't work out because now you had to level a second, you know, class and job. And of course, we all love doing those, right? In all those games. Oh boy, grinding from level 1 again. Woo. What a humdinger.
Well, here's the thing. When Bravely can I talk about Bravely Default for a minute?
Sure.
Okay. With Bravely Default, your character level was the same, and you still had the same amount like hit points and stuff. It's just that you didn't have access to the stronger abilities.
Right.
But but if, you know, for example, if one character was a high level Black Mage, right? And they were at the same level as the character who's just starting out at Black Mage, his ice damage would still be the same as that character because of the level. If I remember. Mind you, if I'm wrong, you can correct me. It's been a while since I played Bravely Default, and that reminds me, I really need to play Bravely Second. So
yeah, it's been on sale too. But going back to what I said, like, you know, they've completely removed that sort of activity, and what they've done is they've actually divided the roles, because there's 3 different roles in an MMO, right? There's tank, healer, and DPS. They've actually divided it into 5 different categories now. So there's the tank, and between all 3 tanks, there are actually unlockable abilities across all the tanks. So, for example, as a warrior, normally what you have to do is you'd have to level the paladin or the gladiator all the way up to like level 21 or 25 or even up to like around the 30-ish or 32 to get like awareness and provoke, which are 2 abilities that tanks really require, right? And that sucks, because if you think about it, if you really want to play the warrior, why would you be forced to play another class that you might not like, you know? So what they did was they removed all those abilities from the paladin and they made that available across all 3 tanks by default. Yeah.
Okay.
So you get what I'm saying here? So the tanks all have the same set of abilities that you can actually equip, but you can only equip 5 of them.
It seems like they're really, and this is a good thing, I've always been in support of streamlining. Now, I know there's people who hate streamlining and think it's dumbing down. No, there's a difference between dumbing down and streamlining, and I think you can agree with that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and this streamlining, I think, is taking a complex idea but making it easy while still having the depth to it.
Yeah.
Dumbing down is literally what it's saying, dumbing it down.
Mm-hmm.
I hate when people, and I'm going to go on a tangent here, mix up dumbing down with streamlining. They're two different things. And from what you're saying, it seems like they're just streamlining it to make it more accessible. That's not dumbing it down.
Yeah. There's actual depth to the game still. I mean, this doesn't make any of the dungeons or the dodging any easier at all. It's just, like you said, it is streamlining what was a tedious process before. Obviously I don't have to deal with that anymore because a lot of my, my classes and jobs are about like level 30 or something. But new players, right? And we've had a lot of new players on Mateus, they don't have to deal with that. If they could just focus on the gameplay, like they'll enjoy it more, You know what's insane is thinking of new players coming in now, considering when we came in. I always think about, I know I talk about that, but that's just how different the game was. And I feel like that's inherent to how MMOs are, right? There is a living, breathing moment of, and you can look back at those times, right? Because that is a tangible time frame. Like one of the things that you always say is like, this game isn't the same game that I played back in 2014. And that's absolutely true, for in more ways than one. And Stormblood's release even exemplifies that to the battle system. Like the entire battle system is completely revamped, I need to buy that game soon, but I'm holding off on it for valid reasons. Well, like I said, you still experience most of those changes in Heavensward as well. So you can even wait until you're ready and then buy it, Yeah. Probably in August or so. But right now, like I've got other priorities, like The Witcher 3, which I've been working through. Okay. We don't need to talk about that till I beat it. But, I like Final Fantasy XIV. I don't like MMOs. I still don't care for them. But that one, there's two big things. Alex and I, one thing out that, we talk about all these things about us being friends. One thing that has cemented us is Alex and I are both huge Final Fantasy fans. Yeah. And I think that's one thing that helped pull me in because I love Final Fantasy and I eat up even shitty spin-off fucking crap. So, I even played that Monster Hunter-esque game from a year ago. Remember that? And I got bored of it. Well, didn't you buy like Final Fantasy Explorers and then World of Final Fantasy as well? I have World of Final Fantasy. Yeah, I have that too. So see, I even, I heard World of Final Fantasy is not too bad though. I didn't play it. So, but I'm a stupid ass, so I buy those. I love that series. I'm a whore for Final Fantasy, and it's I see. I see that every single time. Yeah, but you love it as much too, though. You may not buy everything, but you love it as much as I do. I don't want people to think. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, Zodiac Age is pre-ordered, so on Amazon.com. By the way, it's bit.ly/Amazon Backlog Battle. There you go. Still a little skeptical of that one, but we'll see. They did a lot of tuning. Like, the original team actually came back and retuned that entire game. So it's not like... See, that's the difference. That's interesting, because if you look at the FF10 remake, right? Or re-release, HD re-release, it wasn't the change. There wasn't really any necessary changes to that gameplay. There were some bug fixes, like progression issues that the original, X2 had as well, that they actually fixed for the re-release, and also exploits as well. I mean, there's a major exploit in X2 that got patched, and a lot of people got really upset because of that. But yeah. You know what they do that in all of them. Like Final Fantasy VII newer versions doesn't have the item duplicate. Oh, that glitch. Okay. Yeah. Which I say I didn't do it my first couple playthroughs, but I did it in later ones. I think if you beat a game enough, you're okay to fuck off in it. So right. Going back to Stormblood though, what we're talking about. So I said that there, instead of cross-class actions, there are now role actions, right? There's tank, healer, and then within DPS, Anthony, there's 3 different categories. And mind you, you don't have to worry about these categories. Once you change to that job, you basically already have those available to you, So there's the melee DPS class, right? Right. And so all the melee DPS class share the same action across the board. There's the ranged DPS class, and by that I mean ranged that's not magical. So we're talking about the machinist with the guns and the bard with the bows and arrows, right? So they have their own attacks and role actions, and then you get the casters, which are the Black Mage, the Red Mage, and because the Red Mage is here now, and the Summoner.
Okay.
So we'll talk about the Samurai and the Red Mage in a little bit, because those are really exciting.
Well, before you go on, I think we should do a programming note about Final Fantasy XIV.
Okay.
There will be in the near future a spoiler cast. Now, of course, I won't be in it. That's fine. Just want to let people know. But you probably noticed these from last year. That Alex did a couple of them, right?
Yes. And
explain those real quick.
So these episodes are actually with two other listeners of ours. That's Tom and Luis. And normally what we do, who have guested before, of course, in various forms. Don't need to kind of outline where they are. Right. But in these, we actually really dial down storyline elements and stuff, things that we don't like. So what I'm trying to basically illustrate right now with my review is what really changed in the game, because a lot of people have not played the game in a long time, or they tried it and they don't like it for some reason, right?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. I know why is that? Let's talk about that for a minute. Why do you think people don't like it anymore? Because of the massive combat change?
No. It's not necessarily that because they changed it, but maybe when they first tried playing it at around level 1, level 5, level 10, it's just something that they didn't like. I don't know why. I can't really say, why people all of a sudden fell out of love for it or anything like that, But
maybe there's something different and here, let me play. I never play devil's advocate. I don't like it too, but I will in this instance, okay? Maybe let's consider where we're at. Yes, I'm not as far as you and your buddies, but I've Palia, my character, she's been pretty consistent with me, and she's 59, right?
Sure, yeah.
She's level 59. I really have had no reason to go back and start a new character since then. And I know you have a couple times, but let's also keep this in mind. Maybe we're looking at it from a different perspective because, maybe it plays way differently at level 1 now than it did for us.
It's not just the lower levels and stuff. One of my closest friends stopped playing at level 43 as a Black Mage. But here's the thing though, I feel like there's miscommunication on his part, because I keep telling him hey, you could start another job, and I think he thinks that he has to start the entire game all over. Which is not true. The story is still there, right? And getting up to level 43 isn't actually it's trivial now. In fact, one of the new guys that joined us this past weekend, he's already level 39. It's
nice.
And mind you, he doesn't play every single day. He plays an hour or two a night, And I feel like that's kind of what's being lost here. Now, I've talked to other friends who basically said they didn't get into it for some reason. But as far as but they're okay with other games playing, that are similar to Final Fantasy XIV, not necessarily online, but offline games that play almost exactly the same. Right. And so and that's kind of where the disconnect is for me, is how can you not like this game? I mean, other than maybe, of course, there's the monthly fee, right? But then again, you could be like me and only pay $10 a month. It's not $15 a month, it's 10. It's cheap
now.
It's not.
They lowered it.
No. There's two plans. One is if you want to make two characters on the same server, then you have to do the $15 one. But since I only need one character, I only do $10 a month.
Right.
So that's the difference in plans. And at any rate, before we kind of, venture away from, the conversation of Stormblood, yeah, I don't know, right? I don't know why people don't like it and stuff. Maybe it's just weird personal preference, or maybe it's simply the fact that paying for a subscription is somehow bad for them, even though they sometimes pay $60 for a game that's shitty and they don't touch it for months or even years. At least I try to put an hour or 2 or 3 for a game, to make it worthwhile, right? But so the two jobs are new, that are the Samurai and Red Mage. A lot more people are loving the Red Mage than the Samurai.
Oh
yeah. The Samurai is still really powerful. They actually are now the top tier melee damage dealer in the game. It used to be Dragoon, but they have been eclipsed by the Samurai. but
Right.
it's really difficult to use the samurai later on. I'm only level 52, 53 as a samurai, so I can't really say how complex they get. The Red Mage, though, is really, really interesting. Did I ever tell you, like, how Red Mages work in this game? And when we
No. Let's talk about. Okay, let's talk. But first, let's talk about Red Mages in Final Fantasy real quick, just to give people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the Red Mage, people forget this comes. Red Mage dates back to the beginning of Final Fantasy.
Right.
Because
now since one had.
Yeah, they were in 1.
That was my favorite class in that game.
Yeah, it was. What was it? Red Mage, Black Mage, White Mage, Fighter, and Thief.
And Monk.
And Monk, yes. And then they would all. And then what's weird is at a certain point you'd meet the first interpretation of Bahamut, and he would change you into like warrior or black sorcerer or something like that.
Warrior, ninja. Oh man, I know what you're talking about. White wizard, black wizard, red wizard. You know, and something, and I forgot like what the monk turns into. Sorry, Monk.
Yeah. It's okay. But yeah, that's the key thing, is that that's a concept that's also, the job class evolving into something more has always been around since the beginning, although they weren't known as jobs. So the Red Mage has always been sort of this strange balance of I have some black magic, I have some white magic, but I can kind of toggle between both.
But not just that, though. They also had some really decent physical attacks, too.
Yep. Yeah, they could use weapons that black mage and white mage could not use.
Mm-hmm.
Usually.
Yes.
So yeah, and then the Red Mage has always had. This is the thing that I liked about the Red Mage, is their look. I've always liked their look because they they always have they look more like a rogue, like a smooth, like debonair rogue, as opposed to a wizard, which I like. I like that.
It's almost like they were from the Three Musketeers, right? Because that's the kind of look that they evoke,
Yeah, I agree. That's a good. Yeah, they do have that look. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. It's cool. It's a cool look. So yeah. So that's kind of the history of the Red Mage. So how do they function in this game, though?
So it's kind of interesting that you kind of segued into the Musketeer look, because they really lean into that hard in this one. So in Final Fantasy XIV, when you change your weapon, it changes you to the appropriate class or job. As a Musketeer, as in Three Musketeers, what do you think their weapon is?
A saber or a
fencing sword.
Yeah, fencing sword. A saber.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so that's the weapon that they have. But, it never...
Rapier. That's the correct weapon. Yeah.
There you go. So, I mean, it makes sense, right? For that kind of look to be like, a little bit like kind of fancy and stuff like that, But what's interesting is that, they actually hold also like a crystal that's floating in the air. And it's just basically like, it's kind of like... it's kind of like where the concentration of their magic is and stuff. So they basically use physical attacks, obviously, with their rapier, but then they use like their crystals to cast magic spells, right? And from a animation standpoint, it's really cool because while they're fencing and stuff, obviously they're holding the crystals just kind of floating, and they'll do like little like fencing steps to do the attacks. But then when they're casting a spell, they'll take that crystal, put it on the top of the hilt of the sword, and it becomes a magical staff. And that's kind of like how they cast their magic spells. Which, if you think about it, it's kind of cool, because not only did they have a sword, but they have a sword that can turn into a staff. It's a 2-in-1.
Pretty thick.
Yeah.
That's pretty thick.
Yeah, and the idea behind the Red Mage is really fucking cool. So you'll see a meter, and all the characters and classes in this game now have custom meters that you build up, which is, it'll blow your mind. You'll be like, what the fuck is that meter there, and how do I use it?
Yeah.
Even in Heavensward, you'll see it. But in this case, it's a meter for the Red Mage. It's a meter that has two sides. One is white, one is black. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, I know where this is going. If you cast white magic spells, white magic attack spells, it builds up the white side. If you attack using black magic spells, it builds up the right side.
But the way you worded that, I have a feeling that's not what it does.
It does, actually.
Oh, that's what it does. Okay,
That's what it does. It's simple as that. So you cast white magic spells, the left side goes up. You cast the right side, like with black magic spells, the right side goes up. There's two abilities that actually more than two abilities that actually build up both at the same time, but not as strong. Because, like building up the meter is actually the gameplay here, right? Because what you want to do is you want to get both meters to 80. Because what'll happen is, as you're actually building up spells and you're casting spells, you're actually building up this meter. And what you're actually doing is you're charging up that crystal of yours, the one that I said was floating in your hand. Because once you actually do physical attacks, your physical attacks are actually imbued with magic and deal more damage when that happens. So what happens is you're like in a casting distance, right? You're very far from the boss. Just like the Dragoon, they actually have an ability that makes them jump towards the enemy, and you do a 3-hit combo, and as you're doing each of the combos, it'll drain that meter by like 20 or 30 points or something like that until it's completely empty.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No. You know what that reminds me of? A little bit of, not to the full extent, but one of my favorite classes has always been the in Final Fantasy V. They're called sorcerer, but they're really sword mages. And so I love the sword mage. You don't see him a lot in Final Fantasy games. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
What a sword mage does is they'll have the same spell book as a black mage. They'll have Firaga,
right,
and stuff like that. But the big difference is you don't cast those spells at your enemy. What you do is you enhance your sword with those spells. And that kind of sounds like what the Red Mage does. It sounds like, and the Red Mage never did this before as far as I can tell.
No,
but it sounds like they took elements of the Sword Mage and put it into the Red Mage, which I think is a great blending of those two classes.
Yes, actually. And
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and mind you, those are actual white and black magic attacks. You are still attacking the enemy, but while you're attacking the enemy, you're building the power of your sword attacks.
Right.
And when you're finally ready to unleash it, you jump in, do your 3-hit combo, and then you jump back out, almost like as though you're a Dragoon, and then you cycle back up. The most interesting thing with the Red Mage is that they also have an ability called dual cast. Now you're wondering, like, what the hell that means? That means for every second spell that you cast, or for every one spell that you cast, the second spell will always be casted immediately.
Right.
So you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in other words, while your first attack, which could be a white magic attack, could have a cast bar, if you use that attack again, it'll cast instantly. No more cast time. And then the next time you cast, there'll be a cast bar. The next time you cast, it's no time. So
that's nice.
Yeah, so it really kind of speeds up the pace of the game in a way. And here's the thing that I was really curious about. You mentioned earlier that Red Mages have white magic abilities. Which includes, of course, life and cure and all that stuff. And
that's what I was going to ask, because you used the term white magic attacks. You haven't said white magic spells, so that's what I was going to ask you.
That's a good question, sir. And actually, at a later level, you do get a cure. And and you do get a raise at a later level. Okay. So it's kind of interesting if you think about it that way, because you do have almost the entire kit. Now, you can't replace a healer. Because your DPS, you're just you're doing damage. So your primary role is to deal damage. But in the event that the healer is having a tough time, maybe doing the healing checks for the tank,
or they get wiped out, which has happened many, many times.
Right. The Red Mage can actually step in and kind of offer maybe a couple of cures here and there. And because of dual cast, we know that every second spell is free. There's no casting time. So you can kind of play around with how you want to play like the Red Mage in a way, And actually it's funny because while I was playing the Red Mage and stuff, I actually thought about you because, this is so much like a weird hybrid of Dragoon and like magic, attacks that I think you would probably like really get into this job.
I think I will give that job a go when I get to that point in the game.
What's actually really interesting too, by the way, is if you have Heavensward, guess what, Anthony?
What?
You could start the Red Mage immediately.
Really?
Yeah, they start at level 50. You're already past level 50.
Where do I go, though? I figured you go to the main city and stuff. Really?
Yeah, both the samurai and the red mage start in Ul'dah, so you don't even have to go to Stormblood's areas, not like in, like the Heavensward jobs. You just basically go to Ul'dah, pick up the quest, and you can start leveling that right away. So, like, for example, right now you're around level 56, level 57 in Heavensward, right? Well, you can buy Stormblood, get the red mage from Ul'dah and level that all the way up to like level 56, 57 in Heavensward, and finish Heavensward with a red mage.
I gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah. So
that's fucking cool.
But we've already taken a lot of time, especially for people who actually, like may have a passing interest in Final Fantasy XIV. I'll tell you guys this, like, not getting too much into the story, Xenos Vos Galvos is probably legit one of the most evil and cruelest like Final Fantasy villains like I've ever seen.
What about Kefka? Does he give Kefka a run for his money?
Yes.
What the fuck? No.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, he is really, really, really bad. Like, some of his principles are, like, really crazy. Like, and I feel like, it's kind of interesting because the developer said, like, we wanted to make a villain that was truly, truly somebody that you'll hate. And they made a character exactly that. And I was really super surprised.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not hyperbole. He's really, really bad, And I'm not going to talk much about it, but going for the story, there are many surprises. I mentioned earlier that there are many, callbacks to previous Final Fantasies. If you're an avid fan who's played the first game all the way up to like 13 even, you will see them. You will see those, those story moments, and you're like, yeah, this reminds me of that moment, without giving out too much. The graphics are fantastic. Like, the new areas just look great. And I'll tell you this, Anthony, Stormblood has a better soundtrack than Heavensward, hands down. Like, absolutely. There was a...
Damn.
Yeah, and the two primals. So there are two primals. There's Susano, which, if you guys know, and you've listened enough to this podcast to know, he's a persona, Yosuke's persona, specifically, Susano. And the other one is Lakshmi. And if you think about when you saw Lakshmi last, you probably are thinking Final Fantasy VI, but Lakshmi heals people. So if you want to think about it, like, how is she an enemy in Stormblood? Just to kind of make people think, Well,
let's worry about that later. So
we will worry about that later. So
speaking, if you don't mind, what's your score for it?
It's a 5.
Ah, cool. We got a 5 and a 4. Good games this week.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I will get this soon, I hope.
It's a really solid game. Like, it's really, like it is a different game almost, and I'll tell you this, the last boss battle in this game is like absolutely one of the most challenging but fun battles like I've ever, played in this game ever.
They nailed it.
And I'm not talking about like, hardcore raids and stuff, because I don't really generally go through those content, but man, the challenge was just right. Because, like, you want an expansion, especially one that builds upon previous games, right, to kind of challenge you. And when you got to the end and fighting all these primals and stuff, it was really, it was really, really fun. And in terms of the music, I mean, you hear some really interesting twists. There's some really cool Asian tunes and stuff. There's some really even, like, dare I say it, Bollywood-inspired tunes that actually somehow work in a Final Fantasy universe,
No clue, bud.
Yeah. It's kind of difficult to say without actually, of course, spoiling it. But let's put it this way. Like, if you've heard me talk about Final Fantasy XIV Heavensward and how much fun I had doing that, like, I am eagerly anticipating the first few patches of Stormblood, and the story that they told I felt was really riveting. It was engaging. It was, if this was an offline RPG, Anthony, I would play it again. The whole thing from scratch. I would play the whole thing over, because that's how good the story is.
Hey, this has been a great year, and I know it's technically an MMO, but it's been a great year for the JRPG, and it continues with this.
Yeah, it does, right? It really does.
And what do we have? We have Ni no Kuni out in the fall, and a couple other things. So
actually, yeah. And well, in terms of JRPGs, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Ever Oasis came out. That's out on the 3DS.
I've heard that's good. Yeah. I want that.
Yeah. In
Heard
terms
that's
of
really good.
yeah, in terms of games, in August we get the it's not actually, it's funny because they're now saying it's not a quote unquote expansion of Uncharted 4, but a complete and full Uncharted adventure with Chloe and Nadine from in Uncharted. You know, the
Ooh,
Lost Legacy.
I'm
Know.
excited for that.
Me too. I'm super curious. And yeah, it's, you know, and of course the Rabbids game, which we know your opinions on that game.
And maybe, hey, I'm not saying it's going to be bad, but we won't go into that.
Right.
Real quick,
Okay.
Speaking of RPGs, let me talk a little bit about Persona 5 real quick. And I know we did the spoiler episode, but there was one thing I didn't get a chance to talk about.
Okay.
In that episode, and that was the DLC, because I got to experience the DLC more than you did.
I mean, there's not much, right? It's mostly like costumes.
Well, no, because I did download another Persona.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about this real quick. This is very important to know. Okay, so the DLC, it's a little pricey for costumes, but again, you don't have to buy it, so don't complain about it. You know, it's really doesn't add anything unless you want cosmetic stuff. But I like it because it, you know, like I can play Persona 5 and listen to Mass Destruction from Persona 3, which is a neat little novelty with costumes, right?
Right.
But I think one of the things that I did download was I downloaded Thanatos. I downloaded the Thanatos Persona, who is the like super powered one from Persona 3. And man, when I downloaded him, I was still like level 50 or maybe 54 or something.
Mm-hmm.
He's a 73 Persona.
Wow. That's OP.
Yeah. That is very well. I got Izanagi, right? And that was OP'd. I got Izanagi as a pre-order bonus. I don't know if you got Izanagi.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And even at that, it's level 23 and such. But I'll tell you a funny thing about Izanagi in a moment. But with Thanatos, he's now, you know, he's a level 73. And boy, he is OP'd as shit. But
well, yeah, level 73.
But here's the tricky thing about Thanatos, though. He does, even at that point in the game, even when you get to level 70, he eats a lot of SP.
I see.
He eats a lot. He has an attack called Hades Gate, which is an almighty attack. No, Hades Gate. And Hades Gate, for those that don't know, in Persona games, Almighty is the only attack value that cannot be, that characters have any resistance to or anything like that, correct?
Right.
The Almighty is the most powerful type of attack in Persona games. So it's an almighty attack with a medium chance to kill enemies. And it costs a lot. It's like 32 SP.
Yeah.
Which, you know, like even if you have like 200 and something, that's still a lot of SP. You could eat SP easy in that game.
Yeah.
So I like the DLC so far. Just wanted to throw that out there. And I did do the new game plus, and it was interesting because if I remember, Persona 4 starts you at your same level, right?
Right.
This one didn't. It starts you at level 1, which I thought I liked. Kind of balances it out a little bit.
That's
but
cool.
You still have access to all your old equipment, which I did. I bought like some of the best equipment you can get, and I was still wrecking enemies. So
yeah.
And I haven't, where I'm at in the new game plus, I haven't unlocked the Velvet Room where I can go into the Persona Compendium. So once I do that, Izanagi's coming back. Because you know what happened with my Izanagi? He stayed with me the whole game. He is a level 23 when you get him as a pre-downloader bonus, or if you buy him as DLC. He is now a level 67 Persona.
Jesus.
And you know why I used him? That cross-slash attack is very effective.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm still keeping him around at level 67. So I've never had a Persona in any Persona game that stayed with me that long. So
that's crazy.
Have you ever had a Persona stay with you?
Not really.
No. Yeah, I never had that before, but he was useful. Plus, he blocked physical attacks. So
right.
That's good.
Yeah.
So there you go. A little post-mortem Persona 5.
Nice.
How's your second playthrough going?
That's on indefinite hold right now.
Oh, understandable.
Yeah. Stormblood, you know.
I gotcha. Makes sense.
And we are, and to kind of tease to people and stuff, like, I don't know, maybe by the time it comes out, like, I am kind of working on like a Final Fantasy XIV series of videos. Like, send me your suggestions and stuff. Like, I'm not going to try to make like dungeon guides or anything like that. Like let me know like what the kinds of things that you want me to cover. Like this is going to be, a video series targeted towards people who may have, played the game before and they want to go back, or they're curious, or like the people who just started the game. So email us at podcast@mybacklogbattle.tv, and like we'll try to address those in the video, and hopefully you guys get something out of it as well. And just to kind of plug the website before we go to our question for the week, go to our website at mybacklogbattle.tv. We actually completely redid like the entire layout of it. It looks really fantastic right now. Go check it out. It's actually super easy to like watch the videos that me and Anthony have been working on for the past couple of weeks or so, and there'll be more to post there. And hopefully you guys enjoyed that interview as well with Manga Gamer. They're really freaking cool people. They're guys who worked on the house in Fata Morgana. They did like the localization of it. It's fantastic, visual novel game, which leads us actually to the question for this week, Anthony.
Oh.
Yeah. So this question is actually by Tom. Different Tom.
Okay.
It says, "Hi guys, first time mailing you. Love the podcast. I don't know if either of you had a chance to play the indie game quote unquote Night in the Woods, but I'm really digging it so far. One of the more unique things about the title, however, is that at times it plays more like an interactive story or visual novel as opposed to a video game. My question is, do you feel titles or media that are consumed this way still qualify as legitimate games, or are they a different form of entertainment entirely?"
That's a damn good question. That is because we have actually had this debate. I remember with particularly the David Cage games, the newer ones, Heavy Rain and things like that. And people have, made fun of the David Cage games and said, "Oh no, they're interactive movies." Right. But here's my argument, and it really blurs the line, doesn't it? Right? It really blurs the line, because we're in an age of game where gaming narrative has exceptionally changed. We have games like, and I'll reiterate, I'm not a fan of this game, but Emily is Away, that some people consider that a game, and it's basically just an IM generator type thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Her Story and things like that. The way the games are playing, you still get your platformers, you still get your RPGs and things like that, but the way games are being done these days, they've changed. They've changed a lot. So sometimes when they change a lot, these lines blur. Now, going to what you said about visual novels and adventure games, there's kind of funny line between the visual novel and the game. Wouldn't you agree? And the adventure game. Wouldn't you agree?
But, like I've always considered, visual novels as games anyway, because when, and I can even harken back to like when I played, Create Your Own Adventure books, and actually like, read those, and those are great ways to really encourage kids like myself at the time to like really read books, And it's kind of funny that we're talking about this because, I recently got into audiobook reading for, just for a hobby and stuff. And actually one of the things that I wanted to do as just kind of like a personal project is to kind of, on my own, YouTube channel, is to kind of create like a read along, like choose your own interaction, choose your own adventure kind of game with like an old, choose your own adventure novel. But except, I'm reading through it, but, the question, of course, is whether or not they're games. They're absolutely games. There are things that you got to think about when making your decisions. You can't just haphazardly make your decisions. Now, granted, there are choose your own adventure games, right?
Let me talk about the choose your own adventure books real quick, because I think this is important to making the point you did. The thing about choose your adventures that, I've played a lot of them, and there's a lot that did different things. The mainline ones that were choose your adventure, like the Cave of Time and shit like that.
Right.
What happened with those was there were multiple endings. This is where they got gamey. Remember? Yeah. And there were endings where you died.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the good ending. That's a gamey element. There's the good ending, and then there's a bunch of bad endings. If you do something stupid.
But also just the decision making is part of the game, right? I mean, what I was trying to get at with my statement until my freaking recorder started freaking out and I lost my train of thought was that, sometimes some of these books are written so poorly that even if you make a good decision, it still penalizes you for it, So in a way, like, I kind of learned storytelling, narrative, and character development through those books.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll always treasure them and really kind of say that without those books, I could never have the appreciation that I have in narrative and games or even other media, it's so strange that, we live in an age where book reading is something foreign to a lot of of the younger generation, because most of our entertainment is like movies, TV shows, video games, and how much of that population even reads books these days, so so
true.
From that, just to kind of finish my point, visual novel games are very niche because people the younger generation don't like reading lots of text and all that stuff. So it's truly fascinating to even ask the question whether or not they're games. But long story short, my answer is yeah, absolutely.
I agree. And I want to talk a little bit more about the books because I want to give you two good examples. One of them is video game related, okay?
Okay.
We talked about the mainline, but there were a lot of companies that did other ones. Now, I got to reinforce these two are both gaming related in their own unique ways. There was a series called Dragon Quest. It was a choose your own adventure series that actually had an inventory and things like that. That's why Dragon Quest got called Dragon Warrior in the United States, because those that choose your own adventure series had copyrighted the name Dragon Quest for the longest time. Of course, those books are no longer in print, and that license went under, and of course, Square Enix took the license. So there you go. But yeah, so there's that. And it would actually play like a little mini RPG. You would get a sword or you would get stuff and you could buy shit at shops. You could go back to a page and buy stuff and have a character sheet. It was really neat, those books, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other ones though I didn't play that one at all, if I remember. I just know about them. A unique choose your adventure book were the Nintendo ones. I don't know if you know about these.
Refresh my memory. Maybe I know about them.
There were a series of Nintendo choose your own adventure books. And what was cool about them was, you would make choices and things like that. But in certain points in the game, they would actually have like puzzles, like, the type you would see in crossword puzzle books and things like that.
I see.
And what was neat was you would do the puzzle, but there was always a margin of failure. So if you failed at the puzzle, it would you would be forced to go to that page. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you still made choices, but there were these puzzles that you would have to solve. So what they tried to do was add that kind of like platforming, puzzly element of Mario games into the books.
Right.
Were really neat, if I remember. If they were well written, probably not. I haven't read them for years. I don't know what happened to my copies. But I remember that being pretty cool. So even at those, here's my answer. Those books, Dragon Quest, Choose Your Own Adventure, whatever, all of those type of books were games. They tried different approaches. And that's how, let's take this back to where it originally started. Games like the one that the listener sent us, and games like Euramora, that one that I've been playing, that one. Mask of Deception.
Okay.
That fucking thing. That has, that you can think of that in the same vein as the Mario book. Mm-hmm. Decision, puzzle section, which is the battles. Decision. Battles. Does that make sense? It's kind of structured in the way that the Mario book was.
Or even, to your example and stuff like the 999 games, Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, those games, I think, exemplify that, choose your own adventure aspect of, the example that you gave, because they're literally puzzles that you have to solve,
Yeah.
And, in a way, like, going back to all this stuff, like about books and, the visual novel stuff, I'm actually really sad that, like the guys who own the rights for the choose your own adventure books haven't even thought about video games as a method to to reintroduce that brand to a new audience, because technically, it is still like a static screen and stuff like that. And because I feel like visual novels existed because it's a reaction to Choose Your Own Adventures, right? Like, imagine if you played like Cave in Time as a visual novel, doing the same choices. And just imagine this with a narrator from like Dragon's Crown.
Right.
Like it's like that kind of imposing guy that's kind of like telling you like, like you walk into a forest and whatever. Like, I don't know. I haven't read those books in a while.
I'm going to tell you something interesting. A little story about this real quick, if we have the time.
Sure.
I have always stated that one of my favorite games of all time and one of the best games that BioWare has ever done is Neverwinter Nights, the original.
Right.
And I still think to this day it's very unique. It's a bit dated now, but it's unique, right? In what it did.
Yeah.
And one of the things is you can make your own adventures. Now, there was a book series in the vein of the ones that we've been talking about, like the Choose Your Own Adventures, called Lone Wolf, which was very popular. Right? And when module making in Neverwinter Nights was at its height, this was between 2002 to probably like 2006 or 7. Someone took that novel and he never finished it, sadly, but he made 2 or 3 episodes based off of those Lone Wolf books and turned them into like an RPG-esque thing. And I remember, of all the things I played on Neverwinter Nights, even though it was never finished, those were fucking awesome.
That's good.
Those were fucking well done. And he somehow made it feel like a book.
That's good.
In a way. But you had character models and you were moving around and stuff like that. But in a way, it had a very novel-esque feel. And it was paced very nicely. It wasn't like, oh, you're in battle all of a sudden, you were like Lone Wolf trained at the school. I don't remember exactly, but he trained at a school that had like a Harry Potter-esque feel, not to that extreme, but you know what I mean? It was a little bit more grown up, but
right.
You had a girl that you liked and a rival and all that shit. And it was really memorable. I liked it. So, I mean, those books, I think, can serve as models to, maybe doing things as visual novels. Maybe somebody, what I'm saying here, can take Cave of Time and make it into a game some way.
I want to make it into a game. I mean,
do it. Do it.
Because the thing is, it's so, well, first of all, licensing, right? Like, obviously,
I don't think there's licensing.
Yeah.
I'm checking.
I think it's still Bantam's, property, but it's easy, right? Like, my vision of it, like, if they ever make one, right? And Bantam Books, like, freaking write this idea down because, this is free, right? Make a client, right? Like, make a client that can play visual novels, right?
Right.
Sell each individual book as a DLC. So, like, Cave of Time is like $4, or, like The Secrets of the Great Wall of China or whatever, or I Am a Shark for like $5, like that sort of thing. And, and then make the DLC basically the content of the game, like right. have like a store that you can download from Steam, and then you can sample like what it's all about, like maybe a chapter or something, right? And then kind of let people buy it, and then just kind of update it over time, right? So that way, right. Like you get a lot, that one app becomes a library of all these choose your own adventure games that are actually visual novels. I think that's a good idea.
I agree.
But it's sad to me that nobody has like thought of it,
And I think one of the more interesting things about these type of books too is you don't see them anymore.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, you know what? You'll actually like this, and you might actually run out and buy this biography that's actually available right now. And I think I mentioned this to you in one episode of the show. Neil Patrick Harris's biography is actually written in choose your own adventure format.
You told me about that. Yes. Yeah. That sounds like him.
I need to read the book. I bought it for posterity because I do want to support the format, but I've yet to finish the book. I don't want to hit any dead ends or anything.
I'm looking up the Choose Your Own Adventure series, and they lasted all the way to 98, from 79 to 90, so nearly 20 years.
Right.
And and then starting in about 2005, they started to republish them.
Oh wow.
Oh, in 2011.
Okay, so that's fairly recent, but in book form though, right? And Kindle maybe or something like that.
Yeah, they started to publish them. So you know what? There are some things that become outdated. There are some things, that I think that people considered outdated that can be reworked, like the arcade. We talked about that. I think it's true with these type of books. I think there's a place for these type of books still, because a lot of people do read, and there's a big, huge market for this, especially in the era of Harry Potter.
There's something, I feel like there's something to be said about the presentation medium, right? Like making it a Kindle book or, like an iBooks book is not going to, it's not going to revive the brand, because you're selling a book as a book, right? Like if you sell a book as a game, it kind of, even if it is like some sort of, different packaging, it still feels more appealing than books, right? Like books aren't cool anymore, like it's sad to say.
No, fuck that. I think books are fucking cool.
You may think so, but
because that's my degree, though. Remember? So
yeah, but as far as this generation goes, like how many of those actually do that? You know where you actually see where people say like books are cool. People who basically like want to get hitched on OkCupid. Like, if you look at OkCupid's profiles, like 99.9% of the people on OkCupid say they like reading books. Do they really? I don't think so.
Well,
no, we went to OkCupid for some reason. Wow, that's crazy.
Not to get personal, but I do those sites once in a while, and most of them, they read one book and then watch the movies. There you go.
Sure, yeah.
Me, when I say I like fucking books, I like fucking books. I mean, I'm slogging through Moby Dick right now. So yes, I'm playing Injustice 2, and one end of the entertainment spectrum, and now I'm reading Moby Dick. You know what I mean? So
right.
And let's be honest, Moby Dick is famous, but it's not an easy read. So
absolutely not. So, all right. Well, that was quite a bit of conversation about everything this episode.
Choose your own adventure. Choose your own backlog.
I gotta say, I love choose your own adventure books, and I was sad when I ordered a choose your own adventure book on Amazon and it never got to me.
Fuck.
Yeah, they canceled because they actually didn't have the book. I was like, oh man, because like I wanted to do that personal project of mine, but
I'm gonna see if they're on Kindle.
I don't want to read it on Kindle.
I don't want to either. It's not the same, but
it's not the same. But yeah, now we're like old fogies.
Oh,
I like the smell of I like the cigarette smell of like all these books and whatever the fuck smell like actually got on there or whatever.
There was some really cool ideas though, like the Dragon Quest ones, the Lone Wolf ones, the Nintendo ones. I had a Batman one too that I really liked. So
yeah, absolutely. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, that about does it for this episode of the Backlog Battle Podcast. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, I mean, if you like us talking about like choose your own adventure books or, Final Fantasy XIV or even like the new Walking Dead, please email us at podcast@mybacklogbattle.tv. And also, if you have Facebook, join our Facebook community. It's called the Backlog Battle Community Podcast Community, not community podcast. That would actually be really cool if you guys made a podcast about this. It's a Facebook group. It's called Backlog Battle Podcast Community. We're always there. We're always talking, and we have all this information like after we say goodbye and to find us, and hopefully we'll see you guys next week, and happy gaming. Thanks for listening to the Backlog Battle Podcast. Don't forget to email us at podcast@mybacklogbattle.tv if you've got any questions, comments, or suggestions from today's show. You can find Anthony on Twitter at twitter.com/MagusX1 and on YouTube at youtube.com/MagusX1. You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/MyBacklogBattle or on Facebook at facebook.com/MyBacklogBattle. The intro and outro song is credited to Laszlo and is titled Imaginary Friends. It is available everywhere where music is sold. On behalf of Anthony, this is Alex saying take care and enjoy your week.